Alright guys, welcome back. This is Vape. I'm back with a quick benchmark video for you guys about my new GTX 770 from ASUS. Now I know that a lot of people, when they benchmark these things, they go through extensive benchmarking, looking at all the synthetic ones, looking at a lot of gaming ones, but I just decided I'll do some of the ones that I played recently. For example, as you can see on the screen, we have Tomb Raider right now. And a very popular one, of course, would be 3D Firestrike and Battlefield 4. So let's quickly have a talk about the performance of Tomb Raider. Now, this was only to show the 6970, so I won't spend too much time on it. But as you can see, the average on the ultimate settings was 32.6, optimized was 45. This was actually optimized to play the game over 45 or so FPS all the time. It performed a little bit better than the benchmark, actually. So as you can see, it is performing quite well actually, but you'll see the difference with the 770 in just a moment. Now Battlefield 4, this is the same thing. We have the average of 44 when it was optimized, with 28.7 when it was lowered. Now this is the benchmark that I used, and it's actually the start of the Shanghai mission. As you can see in the benchmark, we have the tower up in the top right there in the optimized video image. I mean, and these are actually the optimized settings that I used for the 6970. The only thing reduced is actually the anti-aliasing deferred. Everything else is on as high as it could be, and that is pretty much that. Even the field of view, most people play with 70 field of view, and I think that's kind of cheating in terms of benching it, because you're not really pushing the game to the ultra settings if you're not using that at maximum. So as you can see there, the average was 44.7 with the optimized, and this was a setting which will in multiplayer give you always 60 to 70 FPS. Obviously it's showing 44.7 here, but that's in the campaign. In multiplayer it's a little bit less demanding, so that is the settings I used. So I'm assuming with the absolute ultra, I'm assuming this 28.7 would probably be about, I don't know, maybe 45, and you know yourself, 45 FPS, if that dips a little bit, you're down to 30 FPS, and it does feel a little bit laggy. So let's jump into the comparison now of the 770 and the MSI 6970 Lightning. Now the Lightning is overclocked, so is the ASUS, but the ASUS one, GTX 770, is actually the overclock is so minimal, you might not even consider it overclocked. I don't intend to overclock it because the performance that it gives me is perfectly fine. The temperatures are very good, and I like it the way it is right now. So anyways, this is the Firestrike, 1080p resolution, the default settings. There's 3 tests there. Both of them are 2 graphics. Then there's one for PhysX, which doesn't really matter because it's CPU intensive, and it doesn't seem to be using the graphics card PhysX, so I'm not really sure what was going on there. I do have PhysX installed, by the way. So as you can see, the normal, we have almost a double in performance between the 6970 and the 770, and the extreme, we actually do have a double. Well, it's just a slightly under double in the extreme settings. Now the extreme obviously adds all the sparking effect, and basically just makes it a lot more intensive. That's why the score is so little. Now before we continue with the gaming benchmarks, the reason I'm doing this in comparison to my old card instead of just benching it is actually to show you that I think the 6970 is about 3 to 4 years old, and I had it for the last 2 years. It's kind of dying now. I think it's making a bit of noise when it's under stress, and basically the reason why I done it was because I wanted to show you what high-end cards now are versus about 3 years ago. Now the 6970 back then costed about 370 euros, I think, when I bought it. The 770 cost me 320 euros, and that's after the reduction. It did cost 400 euros only about I think about 2 weeks ago. So they are roughly head to head, though the only difference is the 770 is the second highest, you know, normal card. I mean, we're not counting the Titan here because that's a piece of shit. But the 6970 was the top end card, minus the 6990, which was a dual GPU card, which doesn't really count. So basically this is not the highest. The 770 is the second highest, and of course I don't have benchmarks for the AMD versions because I don't own a high-end AMD card at the moment other than my 6970. So let's move on to the gaming benchmarks. We have Tomb Raider first. I included only the average FPS because otherwise I'd have a shit ton of results. This is obviously the optimized for 6970, and as you can see, we have the average for 32.6 to 45 FPS on the 6970, whereas the ASUS card 64.3, that's almost, actually sorry, that is double the FPS of the 6970. And for the ultimate settings, which is the highest of the highest, 77.9 as opposed to 45, so not quite double performance, but still a very, very good performance overall. I mean, 77.9, you could turn on VSync, sit at 60 FPS, you're playing comfortably, not putting the card under too much stress, so everything is going smooth and we are happy. Next we have Battlefield 4, and again we have a very, very nice trend here. As you can see, 28.7 was the 6970 on Ultra, 57.7 is the 770 on Ultra. Now it's not quite correction, it is exactly double roughly the FPS. I mean, it's 57.4 would be double, so you are about double here within margin of error. And as you can see, the performance results are just ridiculous. I mean, if you think about it, really, the card is only 3 years newer. The old card, it plays really, really well in multiplayer. But when you're playing it with this 770, you are actually not even going to stress your PC. This is a €320 card. And in multiplayer, I'm telling you, if I put on ultra settings, I get 60 to 70 FPS solid. There's no drops. It's always sitting at it. I mean, I haven't really had a tank explode right in front of my face yet, but I'm assuming it won't drop anything below 50 in the most intensive situations. As you can see, I did throw in the comparison of the 6970 settings, the ones that I used to get 60 FPS all the time in multiplayer. It used to get 44.7 in the benchmark video, but it got 95.2 when with the 770, so you can see a massive increase. It's actually more than double the FPS, so that is pretty much that. I don't think I have any more data. I did obviously show you the benchmark video of what exactly I did look at right before showing you these benchmarks, and that is pretty much going to be that. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Do leave it a thumbs up if you did, and tell me, what are you planning to get if you're planning on upgrading your PC sometime in the near future. The way I see it right now, the best options, I'm actually going to just write them down here for people who want to know. Depending on your price range, let's just say if you have a 200, I'm going to say euros, because you know, that's where I live. It'll be roughly the same. I mean, in America it might be $220 or something. I mean, I know it's not an exact translation, but the way they price things here, it would be almost a one-to-one conversion. And the pounds, maybe 180 pounds. Let's just bring this up to 250, because that's more realistic when you're buying an aftermarket cooler card. 250, I would have to say that we probably would go with, I would go with a 760. It's about €220, I think, and £200, and about $240, I think, in America. GTX 760, if you want to go for the AMD card, I think this 270X is the way to go right now. And the way I see it, that is pretty much where you want to be. Some people have suggested the 660 Ti would be another competitor here, but I'm not actually going to include it, because 660 Ti is the previous generation card. It is also not as good performing as the 760, and it also, from what I've seen on Amazon and the website where I buy my parts, where I buy my parts, it didn't exist. On Amazon, it's actually more expensive than 760, even though it doesn't perform as well. Let's go to the €350 range. We're gonna say here we have the 770, of course, which is what I got. I paid $320 for it, by the way. For AMD, it's the 280X, which actually outperforms the 770 by about 5%. But again, the only things you lose out on here is, from my experience, the AMD drivers are pretty horrible, as well as PhysX, which was actually one very important thing which I wanted to get when I bought the card. And we'll go up to the €450 range. I keep forgetting to put in the EU, doesn't really matter. And we're going to say the 780, which costs about 470-ish euros, I think now, 450, depending on which one you buy, of course. And here we have the 290. The 290X is actually a little bit more expensive, but the 290 actually outperforms the 780 in some benchmarks. but I think currently they're about head to head. The only thing is the 290 is about 50 euros cheaper, so you might want to keep that in mind. Again, PhysX being lost if you go for AMD. For 550, and again, I forgot the EU. I think the 780 Ti is just about to come out right now. Actually, no, it doesn't belong here. I forgot. 780 Ti is ridiculously overpriced, so we're not even going to include it here. And that's, I think, is the 290X. Now, I don't believe that the 290X is worth the money, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to actually just say not worth it here. Wow, what am I typing? Not worth it. And the reason for that being is, oh my god, really? The reason for that being is because you'll get about 2 or 3 extra FPS over the 780 or the 290, and I mean, is 2 or 3 FPS really worth an extra €100? I don't think so personally. I think that the 780 is currently, after the price drop, is really well, and I'm not being an Nvidia fanboy here, because I mean, I just switched to Nvidia. I don't really know much about how well it's going to perform for me, or it's going to die in a year or what, but from what I see, the 290X is now worth it because of the price. If they reduce it to $500 or 450 euros or something, it will be worth it again, and it'll be a head-to-head with the 780. But the way I see it right now, it's not quite there. We're gonna see what happens with AMD Mantle comes out, because if, of course, it increases like 20 FPS, then there you go. You have your flagship card right there, and nothing can beat it. But the 780 Ti I'm not going to include, because I mean, 780 Ti is fucking $700. It's like, I don't know, 650 euros, 600 euros, depending on what they decide to price it here. As I said, it's not an equal comparison of what euros are worth in dollars. But the 780 Ti definitely not worth it. I wouldn't even go for it. In fact, I wouldn't even include the 550, but I'm just going to leave it here for you to see. So the 780 Ti is going to probably be about 650 euros the way I see it. Not worth it for the performance, if you ask me. If you ask me, go for the SLI or Crossfire 770 or 280X. It'll cost you less, it'll perform a whole lot better, and of course the Titan, we can say fuck off to the Titan, because the Titan is a piece of shit. So I'm actually going to take out my old card. Sorry if I make a lot of noise here, but this card has served me. But anyways, this card has served me really well. As you can see, the card is absolutely ginormous. It's actually about 1.5 inches or so longer than my 770 right now, and that is of course because older generation cards had a bigger process, as well as the fact that the older this is the MSI Lightning, and Lightning is always bigger than the rest of the cards, purely because of the fact that they are cards for overclocking, and not that most of us normal people do it. But anyways, that is that for the video. It's been a lot longer than I expected. I expected to make it about 6 to 7 minutes, but this card has served me well. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it right now. I might give it to my brother. I might give it away. I don't know. It still works. I don't know how long it'll work for, but we'll see what I do with it. I mean, it could be my backup card. I'm not quite sure yet, but we'll see. Oh, another thing that I wanted to mention is, if you notice here, I mean, it's going to be bad because my webcam is shit, but this card requires 2 8-pin power connectors. I think it draws about 350 watt plus your PC whenever it's being used at full load, in comparison to the 770 which I just got, which actually only draws about 250, which is a big difference, believe it or not, for a card which is all, well, correction, with my benchmarks, it was twice as powerful as this card, and it draws a lot less power. So it's kind of interesting with the way they're going. I mean, the process is getting smaller, so it does make sense that it takes less power. But that is pretty much that. I don't want to babble on here for too long, so I'll end the video here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.